Hey guys, welcome to another analysis of the Nicola Bulley case. It's been a while since I've actually looked at it. I haven't forgotten about it. I've certainly been looking at the news, looking at what has been said, and I really want to talk about the intertextualities of the Peter Baglin case, right? So let's just find out quickly. Are there any of you here who've never heard of Peter Baglin? Hi, Bria. Good to see you. Bria, I'm not actually doing that well. Been feeling really tired. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Now that I've got the electricity going, I'm not feeling too hot, which is quite strange. But thanks for asking. I hope you're doing okay. Mel Stiller, Charlotte, Josie, good to see you. So so Tina says I haven't heard about it. Dylan, thanks for subscribing. Where the Wind Blows, I haven't. So it's actually very good if you haven't heard about it, because then it means you've got a really open mind. So I'm gonna take you through the Peter Baglin case, and you're gonna be astonished what I'm about to tell you. I mean, for starters, Peter Baglin disappeared 32 miles away from Nicola Bulley, also in water, also phone left behind, hat behind, etc. Right? So quite a few things that are similar. The timeline as well is also surprisingly similar. Chelsea says, I've heard of him. Okay. So Loris, good to see you. Bria says, I'm also ill. Yeah, so I guess one's just got to take it one day at a time, but hang in there. I will also. Remember, the seasons change, and so do our circumstances, for better or for worse. Okay, so let me share a little bit of information with you about Peter Baglin. You have a very similar fabric. If you look at this image here, it's the same sort of thing. Someone who went walking kind of in almost a park setting and disappeared kind of in nature. And I suppose the biggest difference is he wasn't walking his dog, but he did go for a walk, right? And I don't know if you can see the details there. Let's put it up a little bit on this missing person poster. That he was last seen Wednesday the 28th. That was December, and he was wearing a mountain equipment jacket, and he was last seen at a Texaco garage at Worsley Common at 7:38 p.m. And he then phoned his wife I think she phoned him. Michelle phoned him about half an hour later, and that was really the last anyone heard of him. But let's kind of go through all of this step by step, and you're really going to be astonished at what I'm about to share with you. So here is a map to start off with, just so you can see how close the one is to the other. There's St. Michael's on Wyre, and Peter Baglin disappeared about a month earlier in the Boothstown area of Manchester, right beside a canal. The distance between these two sites is about 35 miles as the crow flies. So, an incredibly short drive. Okay. So what we really want to do now is we want to explore the similarities and the differences between the two disappearances, the one on St. Michael's on Wyre and the Bridgewater Canal disappearance. Okay, so here's the narrative. A month before 45-year-old mother of two Nicola Bulley disappeared, 55-year-old granddad Peter Baglin vanished as well. So there's a 10-year age difference between the two. On December 28th, remember, Nicola disappeared January 27th, right? On December 28th, which is a Wednesday evening, Peter Baglin went for a walk along the Bridgewater Canal in the Boothstown area. And unlike Nicola, we kind of know what it was about, because he said why he was going for a walk. He said, I'm going to clear my head. In fact, those were the last words communicated. I'm going to clear my head. And that's where you kind of got to already start asking what's going on there. Clear your head about what? Why? So he then never returned home. That was December the 28th. The next day, his phone, his hat, headphones were found on a towpath beside the canal. Now, if you look at the image beside me, if you look at this image, that's the sort of scenario with the canal. It's also got quite a steep embankment. It's also got trees and a path going relatively close along this winding river or canal. And then I guess you can ask the same questions. What is the flow rate of this canal, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So if Nicola's 23-day disappearance seemed mysterious, right? So if you say, wow, Nicola vanished for 23 days, that's really crazy. Well, Peter Baglin disappeared more than twice as long, right? Same circumstances, similar circumstances. And so Nicola disappeared for about 3 weeks, 3/4 of a month. Peter Baglin disappeared for over 2 months. He went missing before Nicola disappeared, about a month before, and then he was found approximately 2 weeks after Nicola was found, right? So quite curious. Liesel, good to see you. Liesel says, I love this comparison. Would you consider one of Barry Morphy and Alex Murdoch? It's been on my mind. Let me think about that. I wouldn't say with the Alex Murdoch case there's a disappearance scenario, but I'll think about it. Anyway, thanks for that, Liesel. So Peter Baglin disappeared, as I say, a month before Nicola, and was found a full 2 months later. Peter Baglin was found just a few days ago at 10:48 a.m. on a Saturday on March the 5th, so about 3 days ago. As far as I understand, he was found in the canal. As I said earlier, Peter went missing just 35 miles south of Nicola's bench beside the Wyre. Now, just to be clear, these are two totally different rivers. It's not like the one river flows into the other one. So it's the city where Peter disappeared, or town, is sort of on the suburbs of Manchester, whereas St. Michael's on Wyre is a kind of a lot smaller, more compact town. We're going to look at the map in a moment. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might say, well, the reason they couldn't find Peter Baglin is there just wasn't as much publicity. There wasn't as much effort in the search. Well, actually, there was. There was an extensive search. They used air support drones, underwater search teams. They used, I think there were helicopters. There was at one point a search army of 200 individuals combing the area in vain, right? So it's not a situation of, well, this is totally different because nobody knew about Peter Baglin. Social media maybe didn't know about it, but the locals certainly did, right? And his wife, Michelle, campaigned quite tirelessly to, trying to ask people to search for her husband. So according to, I think it's the Manchester Evening News, search teams were made up of GMP personnel. Does anyone know what that stands for? GMP. I guess it's Greater Manchester Police personnel. Does that make sense? And colleagues from partner agencies such as the National Police Air Service, Northwest Underwater Service Team, and the Mountain Rescue. So you can't say that it was a situation of no one really bothered to search for Peter Baglin. You had a lot of resources and they simply couldn't find him. So you had the same situation. So then you say, because we're looking for someone in water and we can't find him, that means it's suspicious. Is that how the thought process works? Because we're looking for someone and we can't find them, it must mean they were murdered. And this is a man that went missing. It's not a woman. So are you saying that this person was taken for whatever nefarious reason? Right? I'm just trying to compare the situation to the thought process of this case to the Nicola Bulley case. Is it rational and sensible and commonsensical to draw certain inferences? So both disappearances occurred near water. I don't know if it's necessary to make that point. I mean, it's an obvious point. Both are still currently, like right now, at the time that I'm communicating this to you, both cases are currently assessed as unexplained. So we don't know actually what happened to Peter Baglin. We still don't know officially what happened to Nicola Bulley. But can we, by comparing both of these cases, can we get a stronger sense, a stronger grasp of what likely happened here? So, so the question is, what intertextualities are there in the Baglin case that may shed light on what happened to Nicola? Now, if you're new to my channel, you might say, intertextualities, what are you talking about? It's true crime intertextualities. It is the fabric of one case that resonates, that is similar, that repeats, that pattern provides insight into another case in certain ways, that it reveals what's going on in another case, and in another way reveals what's different, what's not going on there. And so intertextuality is a true crime rocket science ism. It's something that I often use in my books and my analysis. If you ever hear any other, and you probably won't, but if you ever hear any other true crime creator or pundit using that word, well, it comes from me. I didn't invent the word intertextuality, but I certainly appropriated that concept into the true crime, the whole toolbox that we use. And so this is an example of how can the intertextuality of another case help us understand the Nicola Bulley case at a time where it's still somewhat inexplicable. And let's see what the answer is. So I'm going to take you through 4 intertextualities, 4 insights, and we can also look at quite a few photos. I just want to make sure if there are 4 or they're just 3. No, there are only 3. So I'm going to take you through 3 intertextualities. And you guys can decide whether they're relevant or not. You might say, Magical Mother, good to have you here. You might say, yeah, but I don't really see any relevance there. So both cases involve alcohol in the fabric of the narrative, right? And you might say, yeah, but the one involves very clear alcohol and the other one doesn't. Well, which one are we talking about? So let's kind of deal with that now. This is a photo of Peter Baglin with his wife, Michelle, and they having a meal and a drink, I guess, a beer, whatever. I think I'm going to rather put this up on full screen like that, just so it's clearer, right? And so what do I mean by both cases involve alcohol in the fabric? Well, the 28th, in terms of Peter Baglin, was shortly after Christmas, right? Just 3 days after Christmas. And from what I understand, both Peter and Michelle worked through the Christmas period. So, they didn't really have the sort of warm and fuzzy Christmas day that a lot of other people had, because they worked through it. And so you kind of got the idea that they were celebrating Christmas after Christmas, because the 28th was a day that Peter Bulley took off from work. And so what happened was at 7:38 p.m., it seemed like Peter needed a timeout. So he'd spent the whole day with Michelle, and they were this was a sort of Christmas time together. And then that night, Peter seemed to need a time out, and he just needed to go for a walk. Now, one of the main differences in this couple to Paul and Nicola was they were married. They'd been married, I think it's 21 years. So you had no uncertainty about their relationship status, but then the question arises, was there uncertainty in any other area, right? And we're going to look at that now. So like Nicola, we've got fairly strong evidence of Peter's final movements. Michelle spoke to Peter on the phone later that evening. So at 7:28, Peter kind of got off the couch, left the house, and then about half an hour later at 8:15, she called him. I'm not actually sure whether I'm actually not 100% sure if she called him or he called her, but they spoke on the phone about half an hour later, and he informed Michelle that he was just going for a walk to clear his head, right? So that already gives you quite a lot of relationship dynamic context. It's sort of just after Christmas. This is the day that they're supposed to be spending together. He's taken off work especially for that. Towards the end of the day, he leaves, and half an hour later, she phones and says, "What's going on?" or whatever. And he says, "Well, I just need to clear my head." Now, you can ask yourself, is that irrelevant? Is that telling us something about his state of mind? Is there a little bit of a red flag in any of that? And then we find out a little bit more. We find out where he went. I don't know where they lived, so I can't tell you how far from their home, and I don't really want to know, but presumably quite the place where he went to buy a bottle of whiskey at this Texaco. I presume that was fairly close to where they lived. In fact, I don't actually know for a fact whether he walked there, but I presume that he did, because they say nothing about a car in all of this. So I presume that he walked to the Texaco, bought a bottle of whiskey, and then he walked further. I'll show you the map in a second. So I do wonder, and maybe it's unkind to ask this question, but I think it's very reasonable. Maybe it's not sensitive, but I think it's the obvious question to ask. Had they had an argument? Had they had a little bit of a disagreement? Was it a slight disagreement? Was it a serious disagreement? Was he upset about something, right? It does seem like something was weighing on Peter, right? It doesn't seem like he simply just went to buy milk and came back, kind of thing, right? So he leaves in the middle of this together time, and what does he do? He buys whiskey, which is quite a strong drink, and you often tend to drink whiskey when you really want to clear your head, right? It's not just enjoying a beer type of situation. So that's the other thing, is it's quite a strong type of alcohol that he buys, right? And he doesn't return home and drink and share the whiskey with Nicola, Michelle. And who knows, maybe that was his intention. Maybe the idea was that he just quickly nipped out to buy some whiskey, and maybe they're going to throw it over Christmas pudding. Who knows? There could be an innocent explanation. So this is the last image screen, CCTV footage of Peter in the Texaco. I'm going to show you in a moment exactly where that was. Let me just blow it up. Actually, it looks like he's got a slight smile on his face, but you can see he's dressed quite warmly. You can also see he's wearing something on his head, right? And that was actually found next to the river, right? That cap that he's wearing, whatever beanie, I'm not quite sure what it is, that was found next to the river, next to the canal. So the part that I find interesting, and I guess is, if I was part of this investigation, I would say, okay, I see that, I noticed that, I see, and then I would say, okay, so did you find the bottle? We see him buying a bottle of whiskey here. Well, we know that he bought a bottle of whiskey. Did you find the bottle of whiskey with his other belongings? What do you think the answer is? So what you're seeing here are screen grabs from the CCTV cameras of a petrol station at Texaco on East Lancashire Road. And then that is about, this Texaco is about 1.1 miles by car, about probably less than a mile as the crow flies to the canal. So it's a really short distance away. And so it seems like he walked from this Texaco with a bottle of whiskey to this canal, and that's where he disappeared. And as I say, the bottle was not found with his other belongings. And so how does that make sense? How does that make sense? Kristen says, I'm not sure what case you're talking about, but I'm going to listen. So we're talking about the disappearance of Peter Baglin. He disappeared before Nicola Bulley, and then he was found after Nicola Bulley. But everything besides that is very, very similar. He disappeared about 35 miles southeast of, I'm going to show you guys a map of that in a moment. Let's just, that's the location. Nicola disappeared here on January 27th, and Peter Baglin on December 28th. Nicola disappeared in the morning, around about 9:20 or so, whereas Peter disappeared about probably closer to 8:30 in the evening. But you can see they're very close to one another. Okay. And just the whole fabric is very, very similar. Very, very similar. She was 45, he was 55. And so the question that comes up is, and I think one wants to look at this image when you ask that question. Look at what you see in the background over here. Did Peter struggle with alcohol? And again, you might say it's really an insensitive question. But the fact that he went somewhere alone with a bottle of whiskey suggests that he may have. And that's where I think one's also going to ask the question again, how serious was Nicola's struggle with alcohol? And think about the combination, alcohol and water, alcohol and drowning sorrows, and water and perhaps drowning in water. So I think there's a stronger possibility that Peter got a little tipsy. So if we're going to compare the alcohol narrative with Nicola and the alcohol narrative with Peter, I think you can't avoid making the obvious, drawing the obvious conclusion and saying it looks like there's a stronger possibility that Peter could have gotten tipsy. He'd opened that bottle of whiskey while he was walking, took a few swigs of it, and perhaps accidentally fell into the river. In other words, because he was drinking, he lost his footing or lost his orientation or whatever it is. It was also dark. That's another factor. And so I think you could sort of say fairly reasonably that alcohol probably had a more direct impact on what happened to Peter than to Nicola. Would you agree with that? In other words, we can sort of say that alcohol seemed to be at the scene of the incident in the Peter Bulley, in the Peter Baglin case, right? Whereas in the Nicola Bulley case, we know she was struggling with it. We don't know what she had with her specifically. If there's an autopsy and toxicology, we might get an answer to that. Not necessarily, though. So this is the part where it gets similarly mysterious. And this is so weird. It gets similarly mysterious to the Nicola Bulley situation. So you have a situation where he seemed to actually remove his hat. Remember, he's wearing a hat. He's wearing this hat. He seemed to remove his hat and leave it on the side of the river, along with his phone, also on the side of the canal. And I think you kind of got to ask yourself, thanks a lot, Deborah. I think you've kind of got to ask yourself, well, it's extremely cold. I mean, it's virtually the coldest time of the year, December 28th in England. Why on earth would you remove your hat? Why would you take your hat off? Why would you put your phone down, right? And it's almost similar questions with Nicola Bulley. Why would you put down the leash? Why would you leave your phone as well, right? And then all other things. Why weren't certain things left behind, such as car keys, right? That's in the Nicola Bulley case. So can you see there's a weird similarity that you really wouldn't expect between these two cases? And that then brings us to a very sensitive area and a very difficult area, trouble in paradise. What do you think I mean when I say that? What do you think I mean by trouble in paradise? So in the Baglin case, the authorities don't suspect foul play, and they aren't treating his death as suspicious. But what is curious is that no news reports have clarified where he was actually found in the canal. They haven't really sort of, like in the Nicola Bulley case, you can say she was found right there. I haven't been able to find news reports where they are that clear about exactly where he was found. And I haven't been able to find clear information about how far he was found from his belongings. But I did find this. So this is a kind of the search team at the time that he was basically found. And so I went and did a bit of searching on Google using the satellite function. And I was trying to find, because it's quite idiosyncratic, there's a telephone post over there, is what looks like a poplar tree over there, and there's a fairly narrow road that goes like into a bridge over presumably the canal. And so I was wondering whether I could find this on the map, right? So now's maybe a good time to go to the map. We're going to return to this whole idea of trouble in paradise. So what we know is the Texaco, that's the Texaco where he went. And we know that he was found in the canal near Vickers Hall Lane, right? So we know all of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start zooming in. So as you can see, by bicycle, the distance from this Texaco, where he bought a bottle of whiskey, to this area, which appears to be the same as this area, I'll show you guys in a moment, is basically 1 mile. I mean, it's actually less than a mile as the crow flies. So I don't know whether he lives somewhere in this area, and then he walked from there to the Texaco, bought a bottle of whiskey, and then instead of going home, went this route, and then went to there. And so he was over here at around about probably 8:30 at night on December 28th. And so let's have a look at what it looks like here. I want you to just again bear in mind what this looks like. Try and just imprint this on your mind. There's a telephone post, there's a poplar, and there's a bridge arcing over there. There's another poplar over there, right? Try and just keep that image in your mind. And now we're going to go to the street view over here, right? There's a poplar and so on. If we go over here and we turn back, we can see, and I think this is the wrong side of the canal. It's the other side we want to be on. But if we look over here, there's a path going towards the canal over there and a path going towards the canal over there. Here's the bridge going over, and it's got kind of a path on its side. Can you see that poplar on that side? So let's go over there. And we're gonna look in some detail at what we see here in a moment, but let's continue over. Can you see there's a turn now on this bridge? There's the poplar. There's a telephone post as well. And there's a section where you go off the road. Now, I presume the police parked over here. So do you recognize this scene? Do you recognize the telephone post and the poplar and the road curving? Do you recognize this is the area that we want to be in? Let's go back to that original image. Where is it? Right, do you recognize that? Do you see that is the same as that? Okay. There's also a telephone post over there. So if we get a bit closer, you can see you can go off the road this way, and that then gets you to the canal. So let's have a look at what this canal actually looks like. You can see there's actually a walker right over there. So this is the fabric from which Peter Baglin walked. I don't know if one can actually see the Texaco from here. That snoring you're hearing is my dog. Sorry about that. Anyway, the Texaco, I think, is in this area, but basically there's a bench, right? There's a bench, and the question is, I don't actually know on what side of this canal his belongings were found, but it was found in this sort of area. Do you notice how steep the embankment is here? Once again, steep embankment on both sides. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can find another. Just another image just to show you what we're dealing with. I think it's this one. And that one. I must say the images are so similar. When you look at the Peter Baglin case and you look at the Nicola Bulley case, the visuals are so similar. So if we look at this, it seems like he was on this side of the canal, right? Which I presume is the same as this side. I'm guessing, I don't know. I presume that he may have sat sort of near that bench or something like that. Let's see if we can see any additional markers here. It's very little to go on. It's pretty much symmetrical. But there's quite a big tree over there that sort of stands out. I don't know what's going on over here, but yeah. So I don't know if one can recognize the trees that are here, especially given that That's even less similar. Anyway. Okay. So let me continue with my analysis. Okay. So this will give you a better idea of the distance from the Texaco to the Vickers Hall Lane. It looks like it's a big distance, but it's actually just a mile. That's about a mile's walk, and uh, for Peter, it was a one-way trip. He was walking 1 mile one way, and I don't know whether did he know that he wasn't going to come back. Did he know that he wasn't going to come back? Okay, so it does appear that, like Nicola, the movement of the water accounted for the movement of the body. So they were looking for this guy, I guess, right in front of where his belongings were, and they simply couldn't find it, right? And you had an even more what's the word? You had an even more simple situation, because you actually had canal walls. This is a canal, so you had a very simple, in theory, it is simple water course that has like got these walls on the side. It's not like there's trees overhanging. And so how hard can it be to find someone if they're in the water? And the answer is, well, they didn't find anyone for 2 months, right? It's once again that thing of, well, obviously he's not in the water. We've looked, he's not in the water. Well, guess where he was? In the water, right? So the other side to this whole thing is police specified that on the night Baglin disappeared, the water in the canal would have been particularly cold. That's the same situation we have with the Nicola Bulley case. There are people who say, yes, but she could swim. Yes, this, yes, that. But the water was extremely cold. The edges of the canal where Baglin may have entered are extremely steep. It's another thing that's similar between the two cases. Can you see how steep that is? It's very steep all along there, and it's steep all along there as well. So if he fell in accidentally, he would have to swim some distance if he was going to struggle to clamber out of this whole situation. The other side of it is, did he want to get out of the water, right? In terms of Baglin's relationship dynamics, and I acknowledge it's a sensitive area, because we don't know, but it doesn't appear there was anything particularly troubling going on, right? Certainly Michelle seemed to still love him and still was actively searching for him. But we do know, so if we're talking about trouble in paradise, we do know Michelle was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years prior to this incident, right? And so the question is, what impact did that have? Did that have any impact? Did her diagnosis just 2 years ago, and then you have the whole COVID thing, did that have any impact on their relationship? Did that have any impact on her moods, on her ability to work, on her happiness? Did it have any impact on him? We don't know whether cancer was in remission or what toll the cancer journey had exacted on Michelle or Peter for that matter. But according to Michelle, their fight against the cancer, in other words, she sees it as something that they fought together. According to her, that made them a stronger couple. And so she described Peter as her backbone and her rock, right? But the whiskey, doesn't that suggest that perhaps he wasn't as rock steady as he seemed? And this article came out about two days after Nicola Bulley disappeared in the Manchester Evening News. My partner got up off the sofa, went for a walk, and he hasn't come home. And at this point, he'd been missing for a month. So, to quote from this article, at the time Peter was reported as missing, Michelle said their relationship was the best it had ever been. She said, "We are each other's best friends. On our days off, we will watch A Place in the Sun." I guess that's a soapy or something. I don't really know what that's about, but they'd watch that together. And she said they could stay there laughing together and talking. Their grown children have flown the nest, and they were looking forward to the future, growing old together and being able to afford holidays away. You kind of get the feeling that there's a financial something going on if they had to work over Christmas. Not many people need to do that. Some YouTubers maybe, but the fact that they both had to work over Christmas tells you something, that they weren't in the clear financially. And anyway, she said in this article, "Michelle, you are my world." And there were no signs, she said, of him letting her know that he was struggling. She said, "I would have known if he was struggling. I'm his best friend and he's mine." So, based on her story, based on her version of events, it sounds like um, if something did happen, it was likely an accident. Doesn't that make sense? Based on her story, it sounds like the fact that he went to drink a bottle of whiskey, a small bottle of whiskey, wasn't because he was troubled. He was just taking a little time out. But is that fair? Is that fair? Because the other possibility is that something happened that we don't know, and we've got to be careful speculating in this area as well, because maybe it's not true. Maybe they didn't have some kind of disagreement, right? But maybe they did have a disagreement and he left on the basis of that. And maybe when she says, "You know what, we had a really good relationship," maybe it's true. Um, but maybe there was some trouble in paradise that was bothering him. Who knows? Maybe he had a cancer diagnosis. Who knows? Maybe he was looking forward to them getting over some kind of financial hurdle, and only to find out that he hadn't, or that they hadn't. And I think the drudgery of what they did that day. So he takes the day off work on the 28th. And what does he end up doing on that day? Well, I think they went to find parts for a toilet seat, of all things. So imagine the day that you want to spend together celebrating Christmas, you go to find parts for a toilet seat. I don't know if I would be terribly I don't know if I would be terribly fulfilled by that idea. So that whole thing, going off at night to clear his head and to drink some whiskey on his own, that suggests he was struggling with something. Even if Michelle didn't notice anything, it suggests that he was certainly dealing with something. As I say, maybe it suffered a financial setback, and in the murder case, you can see what that can do to a man. In any event, if he did fall in the canal by accident, even if he did shout for help, no one would have heard him. So in that case, if there's an accidental situation, if he didn't mean to go into the water, there was no one there. It's the 28th of December at night. There's no one out there. So no one would have heard him. And that then brings us to the most mysterious aspect of all. Why was Nicola's phone still on? Does that tell us anything? Yeah, life is suffering. And so you take that point, you say, why was Nicola's phone still on? And then you juxtapose that with the circumstances in this case. Why was Baglin's phone still left where he left it? So you might say that he got a bit tipsy. He was walking and he got a bit tipsy and he tripped and he fell into the water. But then why is his phone and hat, and we're going to talk about everything else that was lying there, why was that out there? Carol, if you're not getting notifications, you should unsubscribe, resubscribe, and hit the notification. It's possible, and a lot of people do get depressed over Christmas. Maybe he was depressed that he didn't see his kids. Maybe Christmas came and went, and he didn't really hear much from his kids. You know, Merry Christmas. Are you happy? I'm actually not happy. That happens to quite a lot of people. In fact, Christmas is a time where that sort of thing increases, right? Okay, so but this raises a really weird point that is in parallel to both cases. Why is Nicola's phone still on? Why was Baglin's phone still where he left it? So in a scenario of an accidental fall into the water, in both Nicola and Peter's cases, you'd expect their phones would have gone into the water with them. If they didn't expect to go into the water, if it was a pure accident, you'd expect all their possessions would be on them, right? And if it's cold, so much more so that you'd sort of have your phone in your hand and your hand tucked inside a warm jacket. And we know that he was wearing a warm jacket, right? He's wearing this. And can you see it looks it looks like there's a pocket over there and a pocket over there. A lot of these jackets have that. So why wouldn't you have your phone in that pocket or in your trouser pocket, right? So the other side of it is if there's foul play, you'd expect the phone to be stolen, right? Do you follow that? If there's foul play, you'd expect someone to steal the phone, and there are two aspects to that. The one is maybe that is why there's foul play to begin with. Someone stole the phone to sell or to use. But the other side of it is, if there was foul play, you would never leave the phone there, because that would be like saying something happened here. It would almost like be leaving a signpost saying, this is where I committed the crime, look here, right? And if there's a body, then also look for the body right here. So if there's a criminal in this situation, it doesn't make any sense that they would leave the phone lying around. And as we've seen in true crime, one of the common things that is associated is when the victim disappears, so does their phone. So Maggie Murdoch's phone disappears. Suzanne Morphew's phone disappears. Gabby Petito's phone disappears, and on and on and on, right? And so why, if there's foul play in this situation, why do their phones not disappear? Because the phones are literally saying, this is where they were, look here, look for them right here. Would a criminal want that to be the case? And you might say, no, it's a misdirection, it's a decoy. Yeah, but it's still saying, because the phone's here and the person's not here, they're missing. It's still saying that. If you don't see the phone, it adds another layer of complexity to the thing. Seeing someone's phone lying somewhere basically means there's a stronger chance of foul play. Sorry, not foul play. That something has happened that's not kosher, right? So in Peter's case, listen to this. In Peter's case, the full list of items found near the embankment include his hat, phone, bank cards, tobacco, house key, and headphones. That's the full list. I'm going to repeat that. The full list of items found next to the basically kind of in this area, I would imagine. The full list of items are his hat, his phone, bank cards, tobacco, his house key, and headphones. Now, you might say, or maybe if he fell in, maybe if he was tipsy and he fell into the canal by accident, he accidentally dropped his phone. But can you imagine him also dropping his bank cards and his house key and his headphones, right? And it's through this thing that I think we may get a really valuable insight into what he was thinking and what he's trying to communicate. And I'm just saying, maybe, I'm just speculating, and maybe what Nicola was thinking. Were they trying to communicate the same thing? And this is what I mean. Like Nicola, the day Peter disappeared seemed normal to Michelle. Peter had booked off work to spend the day with Michelle after they'd been working over Christmas. Both of them had been working. And they apparently went to a place called Screwfix to buy a new part for their toilet that had broken. Not, as I say, the nicest way to spend quality time. Well, I wouldn't think so over Christmas. And so this is my question, and it's a question for Peter Baglin, and it's a question for Nicola Bulley. Why were their phones left where they were? And whatever you say in terms of the Nicola Bulley case, you've got to say, well, in terms of the Peter Baglin case, it was not only his phone, but his hat, bank cards, tobacco, house key, and headphones. What is all of that trying to communicate? And I suppose you could say, is that trying to communicate something? What do you guys think? Do you think all of those things lying there is trying to communicate something? That's what I'm trying to get at. To say, I was here. This is where I was. Wasn't it a kind of message to say in an indirect way, this is where I went? It's not just this is where I was, but this is where I went. Because you can anticipate one of the things that's going through this person's mind in a particular scenario could be, I don't want to worry someone unnecessarily. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to worry someone unnecessarily about where I am, right? And so I guess what they are counting on is that the certain items that represent them will be found, even if they themselves may not be found, right? And so the whole idea then is to say, this is where I went. And so in their minds, and I'm not saying they're thinking extremely rationally, but in their minds, they're thinking, this is the better of two evils. At least you know kind of what happened to me. And it is a kind of an act of mercy to spare the family. So yeah, so that is just basically another case that I came across that I thought is very intertextual. Like, it's surprisingly intertextual. I would have been I would have thought, well, this is pretty incredible if it had happened 6 months earlier or a year earlier or whatever. But this was actually happening at the same time of the Nicola Bulley case, and exactly a very, very similar thing was playing out. And we have yet to find out what the official cause of death is. Right now, it's unexplained. In both cases, we have yet to find out. And so I do think that Peter Baglin gives us a stronger sense of what may have happened to Nicola Bulley. It's happening at the same time of the year. It looks like alcohol may be a factor. And I think when you have a man disappearing, I think some of those knee-jerk assumptions that this probably happened or that probably happened, some of those fall away, right? And so I think you've got to think about what happened to Nicola Bulley. Well, if she was a man, then do you still think that could have happened or that could have happened? If you take that scenario away, then what do you think is likely here? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks a lot, Yvonne. Terry says, did Nicola hear of Peter being missing near the water? I think very likely. You know, that's a fantastic observation. You know, if Nicola Bulley disappeared January 27, did she not count on and she heard about Peter Baglin, and Peter Baglin hadn't been found at that point? Wasn't she counting on the same thing? And wasn't Virginia Woolf counting on the same thing as well? Like, I want to step out of this situation, but I don't want to traumatize my family. So how can I do that in a way that I can live with, and that's going to be minimally traumatizing to them? Just a question. So anyway, thanks for a really good question there, Terry. Someone says there's no doorbell footage of Paul, but there is. I see what you're trying to aim at there. I want to finish off this analysis by just going through this this article from BBC. I'll put a link in chat. But it's something that I've been talking about separately, about who is controlling the narrative, right? And who should be controlling the narrative. So let's do it like that. So in this article, talks about a police boss who talks about the narrative getting out of control. He talks about, I think his name's Andrew Snowden. He says he's ordered a review of the police investigation, and it talks about lessons that can be learned from the tragic case. And he basically says, how did the police lose control of that narrative, right? He talks about how did the narrative go so national and international and get out of control? What do you think the answers to that? Let me say that again. How do you think the police lost control of the narrative? First question. Second one, how did the narrative go national and international and get out of control? What do you think the answer is to that? So there's the guy. Where the wind blows. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. So someone is saying, I think we're dealing with a canal killer. We're dealing with someone who stalks river boundaries and then he leaves a phone as a calling card. You think that's likely here? Yeah, so that's the answer. The reason why that this case got out of control is because of social media. So anyway, he goes on to say that got lost in the narrative, meaning the fact that they were looking for a missing mother, a missing partner, a missing sister. And there he says, in what became almost like a social media pylon around who could be the next best detective to come up with all these different increasing theories. Now, what I've noticed is the story that everyone wants to hear is the foul play story. So that's the story social media tells its audience. In other words, they are incentivized to tell that story, right? And so that's the story that keeps getting repeated, which is why I've only got 300 people in chat right now, because I'm not a proponent of the foul play thing. I think it's nonsense. shall I say that again? Maybe I'll lose 20 people watching. I think the foul play scenario in this case is nonsense. See, 10 people have just left. So the whole thing is uh, the opportunist YouTuber basically goes, you want to hear about the foul play thing? I'll tell you about the foul play thing. Let's accuse this person, that one, that one. And you know why that is? I mean, I don't know. I don't know ultimately what the outcome of this is. I've got my theory. I just don't think it's a foul play theory. But um, there's a important human reason why we don't like to think that someone fell into a river by accident. It's because a person is such a rich repository of relationships and experiences, and it seems like an insult to us that something silly like that could happen to us, and that's the accident theory, right? Um, my best friend in October, not last year but the year before, died in a horrible accident, and it's still kind of incomprehensible that someone so intelligent, warm, personable, kind, such a wonderful person, died in such a unnecessary, stupid, preventable, terrible way. It's a and so that's kind of how you feel, and so in a way you want to um, not exaggerate. You want to, maybe exaggerate is the word. You want something to be worse than it is because it feels like anything else is an insult to that person. But is that real life? Is that, aren't there flawed people, and aren't there people who struggle, and aren't there people who trip over their feet, and aren't there people who struggle with alcohol? Aren't there people who get who get lost, not in the real woods, but in the psychological woods, and they can't find their way back? Aren't there people like that? And so because all of us feel that way, a lot of social media rises to that challenge. Please tell me the story that adds meaning to the disappearance of this person. And there he says, a lot of these theories had absolutely no base in any reason or fact. And then he talks about just the criticism of the police. He says it was the narrative that was lost, not the actual police investigation. So what's different in this case to the Nicola Bulley case was, in the Nicola Bulley case, a medium found, and I don't know if it was actually the medium's dog, but the medium found Nicola, whereas in this case, the police did find Peter Baglin. So, there's a difference between the two cases. But what I find very interesting is this whole idea, let's bring this back up, is he talks about it's important that we do a review. And he says, how do the police maintain control of the narrative when everybody wants to fill airtime and column inches in particularly what has become a sensationalized story? And I think that's kind of your answer, is that how can police control the narrative with facts and whatever it is when sensation is what people actually want? I mean, what is more sensational? That Nicola was murdered and there's this great plot going on, and maybe there's a serial killer on the loose. Let's make it as sensational as we can make it. Let's try and exaggerate it as much as we possibly can, right? How do you then maintain control of the narrative when that's going on, when people want to hear that story? And the answer is it's very difficult, because tabloids are so popular because most people want to read tabloids. And a lot of people want tabloid crime, not true crime. They want tabloid crime. Please make it as sensational and exciting as you can. I don't care that this is a real person. I don't care if this was me or my mother or my sister or my brother. I want to be entertained, and let's salivate on the possibilities. Let's forget that this is about real people, and let's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you kind of got to ask, what has happened to us? What has happened to the whole true crime genre? Is it about investigating cases, or is it about opportunism? Is it about vultures? Is it about money? Is it about ghouls? Because if it's those things, that says a lot about all of us. And my channel is certainly not interested in sensation. And people like disparage me and say the most authentic voice. Who cares? Who gives a crap about that? That's actually what true crime does need. That is what investigations need, is authentic social media, because most of social media, certainly in the true crime space. Well, let me ask you, do you think most of social media in true crime is authentic? Do you think most of true crime is trying to be authentic? What do you think? Do you think they're trying to be authentic or trying to make money? Because they are in a way counterintuitive, counterproductive. If you're trying to make money, then you don't try to be authentic. Stephanie, good to see you. Just in time for me to end off here. So can you see how the conversations I've been having way back early, from the Kylie Rodney case, even the Depp versus Heard, we're having these conversations now in every single case. The deleterious impact that social media has actually on truth in true crime, on investigations in these cases. Thanks a lot, Chelsea. Timmy, what's going on? So I think that's it from my side. Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, we are still waiting for the results. We don't know absolutely what is happening here. But I think, regardless of the official results in the Nicola Bulley case, I think you can say that social media didn't put its best foot forward once again, and some of that's continuing. Some of that is definitely continuing. Okay, so mods, can you see that guy Paul E? So when you see something like that, you need to do that. Okay. Stephanie, I hope you enjoyed your dinner. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What the true crime community, I'm talking about the opportunists, don't realize is they if I'm saying something that's like, yeah, but we want to make money. If you want to be stupid, you're a YouTuber, join the YouTube thing, or get out the way. What they don't realize is where this path eventually ends is that you're gonna lose your channel. You're gonna have legal action, because the criticism, the issues are getting worse and worse. The true crime monster is getting more and more unacceptable. It's getting more and more in the way. And so it's not just a case of just let them do whatever they want. It's actually becoming something that interferes and interrupts and is a burden to police investigations. And so this article that's about how do we control the narrative? One of the ways is to start imposing laws and sheriffs for the wild west of social media. In other words, if social media can't behave, they're going to have to be made to behave. And I think the answer is that they can't behave and that they won't behave. And so I think if you've been following true crime for as long as I have, you'll be noticing it's getting worse and worse and worse. The chances that are the stories that are being invented, the chances that are being taken are getting worse and worse and worse. And so, like in the Murdoch case, if there's no accountability, you're going to have self-destruction. You're going to have things getting worse and worse and worse. So the only way to deal with that is by holding it accountable. And I think that needs to start with, in a police investigation, they actually need to start identifying culprits on social media that are spreading fake news. They can do it in a press release where you don't actually give them airtime, but where you just make a little list. You say, these are the lists of the culprits. And then it goes from there into the mainstream media, right? And then you can also have a situation like you had in the Idaho case where you have social media calling out social media. That can be very effective as well. But you see, it is a problem. It is a problem that's getting worse. Chelsea says, I burned my vegetables. Chelsea, it's 1 o'clock in the morning here, and I actually need to make dinner myself. I'm going to make stir-fried chicken. Okay, so it's an hour 12. I'm going to stop talking about Nicola Bulley, and let's spend a couple of minutes just talking about general things. Thanks, Deborah. Timmy says hi. It's actually raining outside, but wow, I see. Timmy, can you see that? There's another schnauzer there. Cute, cool, Deborah. Stephanie says I had Cajun chicken Alfredo. That sounds good. No burnt vegetables then. Yeah, I haven't had dinner. Actually, just before I came on, I did a 20-minute indoor bike ride. I really wanted to get that done. So I might walk on the treadmill a little. My sleeping patterns are really not good. But hopefully I can settle down with more and more exercise. Hopefully that'll help. Artemis is going to enjoy dinner and time with Timmy. Terry says, I've got corned beef and cabbage in the crock pot. That actually sounds good. Sounds really good. I believe there have been huge winter storms in America. Some really, really big storms. Bria, what's the weather like in France right now? Snow where you are? Probably not. Angela, I don't know really what you're talking about there. How are you liking solar power? Well, the power hasn't gone out once. So far so good. I'm having trouble with one air conditioner that doesn't seem to be, the fan turns, but it's not cooling. So I'm not sure if that's because of, I don't know what the reason is for that. Yvonne says we just had a big snowstorm in the desert, really. You should take some photos and send it to me. Maybe pop them onto the Team Peachtree channel. Laura says wild rice, sausages, and scalloped potatoes. I'm not sure if it sounds good or if it is good, but it certainly does sound good. Are any of you guys watching the TV series Yellowstone with Kevin Costner? I'm finding that pretty good. Anything new on the Weavers? Nothing except that he's abandoned. He didn't even pull the nest down. He's just abandoned them. Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. Someone's coming to look tomorrow. Um, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but um, you can't have what's going on in true crime, where people mischievously engage in witch hunts. That's also not acceptable. You can't have that either. Please subscribe to the Team Peachtree channel. I'm about to put up a really good video on how it was finally proved that the world is round. It's an epic story. So go and check that out. There are a couple of, if you like the Vincent van Gogh, um, if you like his art, you'll also enjoy the channel. I'm trying to get it to 1,000 subs by the end of this month. Lorraine says unexpected in March in USA, high winds too. Oh, okay. Someone who is watching it. Bria says it's 7 degrees and drizzling. Okay. Yeah. Take note of what Stephanie's saying. Did you guys enjoy episode 39? It was quite an interesting one, right? Reform says, when's the next book? Not for many, many years. I'm not going to be writing any books for quite a while. Elena says, I'm longing for spring. It's still too cold. Boo says that I witch hunted Paul. Okay. I said that I thought there were some similarities in his facial expressions that reminded me of Chris Watts, and I was like, I'm sorry that I'm seeing this. I don't know why I'm seeing this, but I very quickly saw that there was a more logical and sensible approach, and I certainly don't think Paul, even in a non-foul play situation, I think there was trouble in paradise, and I think that may be the reason for why that came across. It's not like, anyway. Uh, PAF Farm Girl says, loved your analysis. Thanks a lot. -6 over here. That is pretty cold. Stephanie, you must watch Yellowstone. You must try and check that out. Zen, are you saying, is that a reference to me? I just want to know whether I need to kick you off here as well. Seems like that. Okay. Well, episode 40 should be pretty good as well. GN says we get no snow here on Long Island. Very unusual. That is quite unusual. Yeah, we did look at Paul, and then we stopped looking at Paul. That's all. Chris Rock, yeah, Chris Rock, very funny. It took a while to get himself to a place where he was ready to, where he had context and distance from the emotions, where he could talk about what had happened in a funny way, but also in a kind of an authentic way as well, right? Yeah, I've been wanting to cover that. Instead, I covered the episode 3 of the HBO documentary. So I do want to talk about that. Do you guys, how do you feel about Randy? Do you think Randy Murdoch is, do you think it's like Alex Murdoch is dishonest, a thief, and all these things, and Randy is innocent and didn't know anything about it, and, um, you know, Still confused about what happened? What do you think? Bella Ann says, I'm outside of Truckee. We get a lot of snow. I saw that there was a huge amount of snow in, is it the Tahoe area? It's somewhere in California, like really, really like 8 feet of snow, or I don't know, just looked like a crap load of snow. Yeah, I mean, the fact that the brothers came and offered their services makes you sort of wonder, oh, are they just innocent bystanders? It does make you wonder. Stephanie says, I'm not impressed with Randy. Charlotte says, Randy's tangled in the web. Okay. Can you guys hear the thunder rumbling in the background? Okay. I'm hungry. I'd love to stay till an hour 30, but I'm just too hungry to do that. I'm going to quickly make some chicken stir fry. Last couple of comments. Bria, I hope you feel better soon. I hope you do better. Nana says it's pouring here as well. Hamish, yeah, well, my secret when I make stir-fried chicken is I add Nando's sauce. Do you know Nando's sauce? That makes it really, really good. Miami Lifestyle says, when is Van Gogh? Well, the next one is tomorrow your time, later today my time. So I'm trying to do them every 3 days or so. I do know Nando's. Cool. Okay. Thanks a lot, Josie. Thank you. All of this food is making me hungry. Okay. Well, Timmy is going to say goodbye. Timmy, can you say goodbye? Huh? You say bye. Timmy's very sleepy. Hmm? You can see how sleepy he is. Okay. Timmy says bye-bye, right? And I'm also going to say goodbye. Thanks everyone for being here. And good to see you, Bria. We haven't seen you for a while, but good to see you. Stephanie, I'm glad you made at least some of this at the end. Hope you enjoyed your dinner. Okay, guys, take care. See you guys next time.